Stand Tall Israel is joined by Officer Brandon Tatum, former police officer, SWAT operator, and one of the most influential conservative voices in America. His videos have over 70 million views, and he's one of the few voices with the courage to defend Israel and call out the propaganda. Officer Tatum, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on.
As we know, there are a lot of lies and misconceptions about Israel nowadays. What are some of the biggest Gaza lies that you've heard of and that people out there, for some reason, still believe?
Well, yeah, it's the easiest debunking in the world is that they're committing a genocide. You know, there's no comparison on when they articulate or try to say that there's a genocide. What genocide are they comparing it to? There's never been a time in history that I know of that they feed you during a genocide. They make sure that they send down leaflets. I mean, they do all the stuff that everybody should be aware of at this point. That's not what you do during a genocide. A genocide is the intentionality of eliminating a certain sect of people. And if they wanted to, they could have. And clearly they didn't. So they're not trying to commit a genocide. And also, when you have someone's citizens as hostages and you're lobbing bombs and you killing IDF soldiers and you're doing that, you're in what we call a war. And in war, there's winners and losers. And if you start the war and you start losing, you can't get mad at anybody and call it a genocide. You know, when you started the war and you lost the war, and that's the end of it. You know, and it bothers me that people have a double standard when it comes to Israel, because if that had happened in the United States of America, nobody would be questioning this whatsoever. We have done greater atrocities than what they claim that Israel has done. I mean, we've killed 500,000 people in Afghanistan, Iraq, in a 20-year-plus-year war with no real, to be honest, most of the time we were there, we really had no justification for being there. And then we go in, Pearl Harbor, you name it. We've done a lot of things in America and nobody bats an eye at it and call it a genocide. So in my honest opinion, it's really the Jew hatred and anti-Semitism that's driving people to have that double standard. But at the end of the day, I think Israel did what any country should be able to do, and that is defend itself.
Why do you think that Americans trust the Hamas propaganda so much over the Israeli evidence, the media siding with Hamas and the Palestinians? Why do you think that is?
Well, one is that most people are mindless and gullible. That's one. The second one is the propaganda war. And as much as I love Israel, they are doing a terrible job at PR. I mean, the worst job at PR in world history, in my personal opinion, because there's a lot of atrocities that should be showcased from the Hamas side that Israel, they don't show. I mean, I know that there's respect for the family and the reason why they didn't show October 7th videos, but my God, if the world saw what Hamas did, I think that will change the game. But Hamas don't care about showing children and other things that have happened in the war, and they're pushing it out on social media. They're probably spending millions of dollars on bots and propaganda that they push on TikTok and X, and it's brainwashing the gullible minds in the United States of America. There is also this sentiment, which I think is spiritual. People love to hate Israel's success. It's almost like people hate. They want to hate on the people that are doing the best and that are outperforming what the expectations are. They wonder why Jewish people are incredibly successful all over the world, even though they make up a very small population of people per capita. You look at the country of Israel, the state of Israel. I mean, look at how small Israel is and compared to all the Middle Eastern countries, and they've defeated all of them. And they have a sovereign nation where they are flourishing. And they have a partnership with the biggest superpower in the world, which is the United States of America. And for some reason, people don't like that. They want to exemplify the victim, the underdog per se. And I think that's why Americans are so gullible. I mean, we're gullible in our own country to the same foolery, that a black man can't walk down the street without getting killed by a police officer, which is asinine. And that everybody that's a minority that's not or a person of color has to be subservient or treated poorly. And it's not true. And I feel like they do the same thing with the Jewish people, is that they're so successful. And yeah, they are a part of major industries. Is because they've overcome. If you were to put your head down, work together as a community and start putting yourself in strategic positions to be successful, every culture wants to do that. They're just jealous that the Jewish people have done that and they hadn't. And I think that's a part and parcel of what we see today, but it's incredible. Americans are not as smart and intelligent and have as much common sense as people would think they have. We're so susceptible to propaganda, to be quite honest.
Why do you think this Gaza propaganda is so effective, even on the conservatives, the leftists and all that? I understand, but now it's starting to creep into the conservatives. What do you think about that?
I think it's big influential people are leading the charge. And when you have people that have millions and millions upon millions of followers, and conservatives have followed them for a long time, it becomes tribal. They begin to pick the person that they like the most, and they go down the path that the person is going. You know, you look at Tucker Carlson and you say, well, he's a powerhouse in the conservative movement, and he's been a certain way for so long, and everybody loves him. So when he takes a left turn, people are going to be tribal in supporting him, no matter what he say, no matter how ridiculous that it is. And that's kind of the way people are feeling. It's also spiritual. I believe God is separating the wheat from the tare. He's separating good from evil. And I think that it's not exempt on the right side of politics. They're getting exposed as well. And then also I think it's more so of the women and the effeminate men that are creating this drama. And let me explain to you why I'm saying that. When they show pictures of children, this gets to the heartstrings of women more so than anybody else. And if you notice, women are just outraged, and I understand why. Because women they're the one that create life, and they're the ones that nurture babies, and they have this affinity for seeing a child in a way that men don't see it. And the effeminate men are the weak, wussified men that are up under the armpit of these women that are feminized. They are also, I would say, tricked into it instead of seeing it for what it is. And that means that it's war. And so I think that those factors are a contributing cause to the reason why we bought this propaganda so much. I mean, when you show a kid with his flesh hanging off, or you show a dead kid on the rocks, no matter how it happened to him, right? We don't know what really happened to these kids. We don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Hamas didn't shoot one of the kids and then they put him up as if he's got shot by the IDF. I wouldn't be shocked if they forced these people to stay in the buildings. The building come down after fair warning, and then they go and try to pull the kids out of the building. Or a kid is walking through somewhere and they step on a landmine or something that's been put up by Hamas, and it blows the kid's hands off, and they show them to the world as this is what Israel is doing. This is what Israel is doing. I wouldn't be shocked, but people don't care when they're hyper emotional. And this is kind of the tactic that they've been able to use.
What do you think is pulling these young conservative men towards like a Nick Fuentes? Tucker Carlson, I understand he's been there for years, but Nick Fuentes kind of came out of nowhere, so to speak, and his views are off the deep end. What do you think is pulling people to support somebody like that? And why is Tucker Carlson platforming him?
Well, it's a few things there. One is that the emasculation of young men today is a cause of this, and the emasculation and kind of ostracizing of white men is also a cause, right? So you have these young men who don't know how to work hard, who don't come from a family of warriors, meaning that people that have fought in the wars or they are in the military themselves. You got a bunch of young wussies, a bunch of young cowardice men who are afraid to go up and approach a woman, who don't know how to hold a door open for a woman, who don't know whether or not they're going to pay for the meal or not, who are too cowardice to take the step forward and engage in marriage and believing in the family. They sit around and make excuses all day. Oh, I can't afford a house. I can't do this. We've had a culture of wussified men who find solace or find some type of a connection in a Nick Fuentes, who's also a guy who's not married, a guy who will never fight in the military, a guy who just don't have a masculine persona, or even he don't even embody masculinity. So this is a lot of young men go down that path. And I think that Tucker Carlson and others like him are very strategic. People think that it's by chance that he interviewed Nick Fuentes. And me and my wife talked about this all the time. And it's that Nick Fuentes had momentum and he was rounding up all the young minds. And Tucker Carlson didn't want to be on the wrong side of him for political and leverage purposes. It's not really that he cared about it or not. He just didn't want to be on the wrong side of him. So he reconciled with him to join forces so he can build, this is just my opinion about it. I don't really know for a fact, but it's so he can build his persona even higher and not be, I would say targeted by the gropers, the ones who called his dad out for being CIA, said Tucker Carlson was a CIA plant. I mean, and all kind of old crazy stuff that the younger generation is starting to buy into. Now, if you're a coward and you don't really believe in God like you say you do, you buy into that stuff. You bring on a Nick Fuentes and don't challenge him because you're afraid of the ramifications for being on the opposite side of him. But people like myself and others who are grown men with responsibilities and kids, and we have fortitude, we know the difference between the two. We know that this will pass. We know that a Nick Fuentes is a flash in the pan. That guy is not going to be sustainable with his rhetoric, calling women bees, saying women should get raped. He's talking about he mocks the Holocaust every time you turn around. I mean, the guy says the N word out of his mouth every time. He'll never be mainstream and he'll never be palatable to the next generation of people who want to go somewhere in life. And you think about it, what has he accomplished? He's accomplished absolutely nothing. He don't own anything substantial. He hasn't built anything substantial. He don't have a family. He's not married. He's not doing anything. He's in a basement somewhere, maybe at his house. Maybe he got a little condo or something that he do his live stream out of, but he's not making a difference. Where is he fundraising or supporting causes? He doesn't talk about it. So I assume he's not doing anything. And so, these people are not who you think they are. They're not really spiritual like they say they are, because I guess Nick Fuentes says he's a Catholic, which is insane. And I guess Tucker Carlson say he's a Christian. But he let a guy come on his podcast and say he support Joseph Stalin, who was anti-Christian, anti-religious, an atheist, a murderer that destroyed churches. Tucker Carlson will rip your head off because Israel had a mishap and a missile or something hit the side of a church. He will rip your head off about that. But then he won't say nothing about a person supporting Joseph Stalin who destroyed churches intentionally because he hated religion. And so, these people just aren't who you think they are. It's a lot of money involved in this. It's a lot of clout. It's a lot of strategic planning on the back end, man. This is some people looking at long-term manipulation of the populace so they can be forever popular. And they will go with the wind. When it was popular, Tucker Carlson was right. He was on the right side. He supported Israel. Same thing with all these politics. They supported Israel when it was convenient. Then they saw it slip away. They saw the propaganda coming in. They saw Israel starting to lose touch. And what do? They don't stand like I did. They panic and they jump ship over here. And that's what most of it is about.
Do you think the right lost its moral clarity since October 7th, or are we talking about a small percentage of the right?
Yeah, I think it's a small percentage of the right. I think it's what we call the internet right. The average person is not paying attention to this stuff, to be quite honest. If you go to the average person, they probably have no idea who Nick Fuentes is. The average person isn't engulfed in politics like I am. And we get caught up in this sometimes because we think the whole world do what we do. No, I'm doing politics. I'm on Instagram. I'm on X. I'm doing this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So all that I think about is what's politically coming out in the news. The average person is going to work, focusing on their job. Most people don't even vote. In America, half people don't even vote. So I don't think that most people are concerned about these things. People are concerned about that paycheck, whether it's going to pay the bills or not. People are concerned about the grocery prices, the price of gas. These business owners that own small businesses, they're worried about tariffs. They're worried about the next wave of success in their business or failure. They're not worried about Nick Fuentes, some half Hispanic guy online talking stupid in his basement. I'm just, at least that's the way I feel. If I went to ask my dad today who Nick Fuentes is, my stepmom, my dad, my mom, my uncles, they have no idea who Nick Fuentes is. And I would say the only reason a lot of people knew who not Tucker Carlson, but Charlie Kirk is because of what happened to Charlie Kirk, which made him explode around the world and everybody knew his name because of what happened. Because a lot of people in my family don't follow politics to even know who Charlie Kirk was. And now they do because of his assassination. But I don't think it's a big majority of conservatives. I mean, look at what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's out of there. These people that are anti-Semitic and they going through this, God is going to serve them one way or another. You see Tucker Carlson apologize, even though he didn't mean it. He still came out and apologized, said he was sorry for calling Zionists the worst despicable people. You see the Heritage Foundation came out and apologized. It's because the real people that have common sense are coming after them when they do things like this. They're calling them out. They're exposing them when they do things like this. They're not supporting them.
So talk a little bit about your trip to Israel before October 7th. You said it changed your perspective. Talk about a little bit what you saw over there and how it affected you.
First of all, I was completely ignorant to anything geopolitical. I was completely ignorant to anything outside the United States of America. When I was growing up, I never left Fort Worth, Texas, which was the city I grew up in, let alone leave the state. So, growing up, the furthest I've ever gone was Arizona. And then I, traveled around the country to speak at Turning Point USA, but I had never left the country. And I had never thought about any country outside of our country, to be quite honest. And so to be honest, going to Israel, because I'll tell you how it all happened. I was meeting with Pastor Alan Jackson. He just brought it up because he go to Israel all the time with his church. I think he's probably been there like 50 times. He go multiple times a year. And I'm going to go back with him. I think in 2026, I'm going to try to go with him a couple times. But he just mentioned Israel. And I was like, wow, I've never been to Israel. That'd be cool. He's like, well, you want to go? We going on a trip? I'm like, Of course. I was a little nervous because I never left the country, but I said, let's do it. And I went to Israel. I thought Israel was a third world country at first, right? I'm thinking it's like Afghanistan, Iraq. I'm thinking it's some Middle Eastern country like that. I get there and I'm blown away. I'm like, oh my God, look at these freeways and buildings and infrastructure. And it was beautiful. So that changed my idea. Then we went to Jerusalem. The first night I was there, or the first like 3 nights I was there, and I saw how peaceful it was. We were at the Western Wall. We had an opportunity to go up on the Temple Mount, and you could feel a little tension there, obviously for obvious reasons, right? But for the most part, it was peaceful. Everybody was getting along with everybody. The markets, you had the Arab and you had the Jewish markets, and everybody was getting along. Every hotel we went to, every resort we went to, it was multiple different culture of people there. And when the Muslims or the Arabs had their holidays, the Jewish people worked, and when the Jewish people celebrate Shabbat and they had their day off, the Arabs worked, and I never thought of something like October the 7th would ever happen. Now, clearly, I didn't know any better because I didn't live there. But being there, it was beautiful, peaceful. As a Christian, I mean, we were treated well. It was really no issues there. We worshipped on the Sea of Galilee, the Mount of Beatitudes. We went to where they believed Jesus was buried in a tomb. I mean, all the holy sites. It was so many different cultures and religions represented there as tourists, and some people even stayed there in the monasteries. I mean, you name it, it was a microcosm of spirituality, in my opinion. And we had really no issues. And people got mad at me and made fun of me, and they still to this day say I accept getting spit on because some little kid was being a weirdo and he spit at Pastor Allen Jackson. And I was honest with Benjamin Netanyahu when I interviewed him, and I said that's the only thing that happened. Imagine if I was in Gaza. You know what I'm saying? People try to say, "Oh, you got spit on." It was like, well, that was one kid. He was like 4 or 5, and his mom literally tried to turn a blind eye. Somebody's teaching him hate. And then as soon as he did that, another guy came behind him and said, that's wrong. But nobody remember the part where I said the gentleman came immediately and said, that's wrong. We don't, you guys are always welcome here. They just hook on the part this little kid did that. But they're not talking about the thousands of people who were extremely generous to us, tour guides. I mean, you name it, man. It was great. And Christians are in Israel all the time. You can't name another country in the Middle East where Christians are accepted, where Christians can proselytize, witness, Christians can build churches. I mean, the Trinity Broadcast Network got a massive studio there overlooking. I mean, you can see Jerusalem, the capital, and everything from that studio. Christians were everywhere, and nobody stopped us from worshiping, and nobody stopped us from talking about Jesus. I mean, I literally got a tattoo that says Jesus is Lord in Jerusalem. I love Israel, man. And at the end of the day, I love the Jewish people, my Jewish brothers and sisters, just like Jesus did. I don't know why we got to have a problem. There are some Jewish people that are weirdos, just like there's some Christians that are weirdos. Welcome to humanity. But for the most part, we're brothers in this. We're brothers and sisters. Why do we have to have an issue? We should love one another. Even if we have some religious differences, let's bring our religious differences together and let's talk through them. Because at the end of the day, I do believe that Christians and people who practice Judaism have a lot more in common than we allude to. And I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I'm not talking about the paganized religion that most people call Christianity today. I'm not talking about that one. The one where we celebrate all these fake holidays and the Council of Nicaea, and they done all this other stuff. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the belief system that Peter had, that Jesus had, that the apostles had. That's the belief system that I'm talking about, which was rooted in Judaism. Jesus kept the Sabbath. It's the devil that want to make us go apart like this. In my opinion, God wants us to come together as brothers and sisters and worship the same God and get our differences. We can talk through our differences, but at the end of the day, we still worship the same God. So that's just my opinion on it.
Do you think that there are a lot of Christians out there that support Israel privately, but they stay silent publicly? Or do you think more should come out and speak up for Israel? Speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I definitely think there's tons of Christians that believe and support Israel, but they won't say anything because they look at my social media and they look at some of the people that rear their head out to say something and they get beat over the head. I mean, I'm still getting messages, people saying I'm getting paid $7,000 a post from I guess Israel. I mean, with no evidence whatsoever, just defaming me every single day. And a lot of them don't have any influence or money, so I'm not going to sue them. But I'm just praying one day some big network say I'm getting paid $7,000. I'm gonna either sue you and get paid way more than what I would get paid with the $7,000 claim, or if they want to pay me $7,000, I'll take it. You can pay me to what I already believe. That's the easiest money I ever make in my life. So at the end of the day, I think Christians do need to stand up more and speak the truth and speak what the Bible say. You don't have to be super spooky and you don't have to be all doing it. You just read a scripture. If somebody asks you what you think about Israel, just read a scripture. You don't even have to say that. You don't have to articulate. Just go to Genesis. Just go to, for Christians, you go to Romans 11. See what Paul said. It's so many verses. Amos. You can go down a list. You can go to all of the books in the Old Testament. You can go all the books in the New Testament. Look at what Jesus said. Salvation's come to the Jews first and then the Gentile. You can go through this 100 times. Just read the scripture if you don't know what to say. And I encourage Christians to stand up when it's time to stand up, because at the end of the day, I honestly believe if we claim that we believe Jesus was the Messiah, then what would Jesus do? Jesus stood up for what was right to the point of death. They beat him and they crucified him and hung him on a cross and pierced him in his side. They beat that man to death. So he was willing to stand up for the truth, even at the risk of going to Calvary cross. Can't even risk a bad comment under our post. Like at some point, we got to say, just turn the comments off if you can't handle the smoke with the comments. But you can't just cower. But you see a lot of people in my position that are doing it. They don't want to look. I lost followers over this stuff. I probably lost money. I don't know. Like on my Instagram account, I think net to this I lost 14,000 subscribers. Now I have 2.3 million, so 14,000 is not a lot. On my YouTube channel, I got 3.8 million people following me, but I lost 5,000 followers over this. It's not that significant, but some people don't even want to lose that many followers. I have never lost followers a single month in the entire time I've been doing social media. Never. And this is the first time I've lost followers. But at the end of the day, I don't care, because I have to look at God at night when I pray, and I have to be able to say, I stood up for what was right. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's not about the followers. None of that stuff matter. I just want God to be pleased with me standing up for what he wrote in his book, just like Moses, just like Abraham, just like Noah, just like Job. I mean, you go down the list, just like all of those men in the Bible that we claim we believe in. I want God to look at me and say, my servant did well.
Do you think this war exposed a spiritual break in America? Like, just going along with what you're saying, between Satan and God.
Percent. I think everything is gonna come. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, and I'm immune to it at this point. I got my hate vaccine, so I think that everything spiritual is predicated on Israel. I honestly believe that with my whole heart. I'm not even making this up. The way you treat God's chosen people and the promised land is the difference maker between good and evil. If you are a good person and you genuinely believe in God and you genuinely read the Bible, you should genuinely understand the position of Israel. You don't have to like the government. The government ain't in the Bible. Netanyahu ain't in the Bible in some prophetic way. I don't know if he fulfills some prophecies. I don't know, but he's not in the prophetic. So that's irrelevant. But at the end of the day, you have to see it the way God sees it. And he's like, this is my chosen people and this is what I've done. Are you going to go against that is the question. Because I don't have to like it or agree. It don't matter. God has already established it, and you need to acknowledge what God did and get out the way. Are you going to be a person that go against God and what God has established and what God is already going to do? Because God is going to do what he's going to do. He don't need you. But the question is, are you going to be on his side? Or are you going to try to go against God? And this war, in my opinion, exposed a deep, dark secret, because the war is nasty and it was bad. And you don't like to see kids die and anybody die that's innocent. Hamas is the one that put these people in this situation. And it's sad that they had to die on behalf of Hamas. But at the end of the day, if you read your Bible, God has David and Goliath. I mean, David beheaded Goliath. If people didn't forget, God always stood behind his people in war times, and there were people that died in war. It's just the way it happens. I don't know what new God people are believing in now, but this has been going on since the beginning of time. And I just think that it did expose Christians. It exposed a lot of Christians more than anything, because you have the Jewish people that are secular or whatever the case may be, and they don't count. But the Jewish people the Christian people who are claiming to have a faith and they're claiming to believe in the God of the Bible, and they're now taking the side of Hamas, because it's not even criticism of the war, right? I don't think people have a problem with somebody criticizing the war. They don't just criticize the war. They go full on propaganda. They go from saying that's sad that the IDF killed that kid or whatever the case may be to saying it's a genocide. It's an apartheid. They're occupying. It's an open air prison. It's like, like, how did you go from I'm criticizing this action of an IDF soldier to like a whole condemnation of Jewish people? Listen, you've never seen any of these people that criticize the war in Israel not also fall for propaganda when it comes to the Holocaust. Name one of them that's not slightly questioning or completely denying the Holocaust. Name one of them that's not pushing this false idea that Israel runs America and that all of our politicians are somehow bought and paid for by AIPAC. You can never find them just focus on the point and say, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with Netanyahu's decision to do this. I think Israel should do this instead of this. You never see that. You only see them go off the cliff. And this is where the anti-Semitism thing gets convoluted because they go, every time somebody criticizes Israel, they're called anti-Semites. Well, kind of and not really, because they're not criticizing. They're denying the Holocaust. They're saying that Jews run the whole nation and they started pornography and Jews are running Hollywood and now that's why Hollywood is pedophilic. It's like they blame the Jews for everything. They blame the Jews for 9/11. And when we already had the Islamic terrorists take responsibility for 9/11. They took responsibility. Their people were the ones discovered on the planes. And they blame the Jews. I'm saying
Charlie Kirk also.
Charlie Kirk's death. Incel, homosexual, trans adjacent kid that was brainwashed and manipulated into believing the lies, got up on a building and shot and killed Charlie Kirk. That's what happened. How did Jews end up in this? How would Israel kill Charlie Kirk? That would be the dumbest move on planet Earth. Why they would never kill, it wouldn't benefit them killing Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was the biggest Zionist out of any conservative, just about. They forget, Charlie Kirk went on campus every single day defending Israel. You cannot find a video anywhere of Charlie on any campus not defending Israel. You can't find it. He was texting with Josh Hammer, a rabbi, and others to help him in his defense of Israel on the day he got killed. He wrote a letter to Benjamin Netanyahu articulating his love and affinity for Israel and giving him tough love and critique. A man that hated it. Why would Israel kill that guy? There's a lot of people who would openly hate Israel and they somehow survive. But Charlie Kirk, who's the biggest Zionist that I know, he gets killed. And they got to kill him and let me tell you this, they're so sloppy in their execution that a person at their house can do the investigation and find all the facts. They're going to assassinate an American citizen and risk destroying an entire relation with the United States of America. And an amateur will catch them in the act. That's asinine. I mean, you name it. RFK, Martin Luther King. They probably say Martin Luther King was the Jews that killed Martin Luther King. I mean, you name it. Any industry, any fault, any problem with America, any problem with the banking system, any problem with bad spending by the government, they blame Israel. Lobbies, they blame Israel when these other countries have a way bigger lobby than Israel would ever dream of on their best day. Every country gives financial aid to other countries, but they only have a problem with Israel. We give money to Jordan. We give money to Egypt. We giving $400 million plus to Ukraine, but they only care about Israel. What is this about? It's true, in my opinion, it's anti-Semitism where people knowingly or unknowingly fall in the category, either naturally or spiritually, they fall for the propaganda stuff.
What would you say to people that are still confused by the propaganda, people that they can't see from right to left? What would you say? Just to close.
I would tell people to pray about it. Pray to God about it. Ask God for guidance and wisdom. Take a step back and look at both sides. Look at what the people on Israel's side is saying, and look at the people who hate Israel saying. Like, look at both sides and come to a reasonable conclusion after deductive reasoning. I mean, I wouldn't try to get frustrated with them, but I'm like, you got to put things in perspective. Ask yourself the question: why is there only 1,000 Christians that live in Gaza? And there's 180,000 Christians live in Israel. Why can you not witness in the West Bank of Gaza as a Christian, but you can build a church in Israel as a Christian? Why come there's no Jewish people serving in the government in the West Bank or Gaza? Why? When you have Arabs serving in the Knesset So you got to look at this and say, why is it a lopside? Why is it so lopsided when it comes to who's acceptable and who's not? Why was Bethlehem over 80% Christian before the Muslims took over? And now it's like 13% Christian. Why is that? Why do Christians flee all of the Middle Eastern countries to go to Israel if they're so bad and they're the boogeyman? And I think people need to use reasoning, take a step back, try not to look at the propaganda, do research historically, and I think people will come to at least a fair understanding and they can make their own decision.
Officer Tatum, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your moral clarity and for standing with the truth and for standing with Israel. And I just want to wish you continued success. God bless you. Thank you for everything.
Well, God bless you. Thank you for having me.